I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safe.
Faith, firearms, and freedom. Welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio. And now, here's your host, the Armed Lutheran, Lloyd Bailey.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I am your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran. This is episode number 426. Welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you here. I'm excited because today is a variety show. It's the long-awaited, much-anticipated, most requested contributors are back. Mia and Sergeant Bill are with us. We also have another guest submission from our good friend Stephen Clifford. Pastor John Bennett, unfortunately, is under the weather, and he's saving his voice for something more important, namely his Sunday sermon. So if you would please keep him in your prayers. But before we get to that, I do want to thank the members of the Reformation Gun Club, the men and women who make this show possible. Folks, we are listener funded. We don't have any advertising. We don't have any sponsors. We rely on the good people who are members of the Reformation Gun Club, the people who make this show happen through their annual contributions. This week's shout out goes to Kevin from Marion, Iowa, Kurt from Rialto, California, Mark Fisher, Melvin from Holt, Missouri, the disreputable Bartlett, Paul from McKinney, Texas, Jerry and Billy from Deer Lodge, Montana, Donnie from White Bear Lake, Minnesota, Dan from South Lyon, Michigan, and Mark from Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Thank you all so much, and thank you to all of the members of the Reformation Gun Club for your support. Folks, we couldn't do this without them. If you would like to join them and help support the show and keep it going in the future, if you would like to get access to hundreds of hours of exclusive content, some cool Armed Lutheran swag, and invitations to our monthly online hangouts, please visit armedlutheran.us/gun club, or you can also go to reformationgunclub.com. or you can look for a link in the show notes for this or any of our previous episodes. All right, this week, I asked our cast members to summarize their thoughts on the outcome of the recent elections and to share what they hope the re-election of President Donald Trump as our 47th president and the fact that the GOP is going to control the House and the Senate. What would this mean? For their various endeavors and personal hobbies and careers as gun owners, as law enforcement officers, as hunters, as competitive shooters, as pastor, although we won't get that perspective today, unfortunately. But I wanted to know, what did they think? What do they hope that this election means for the gun-related issues that they care about and for their professions and the hobbies in which they are engaged? So, you have heard a lot from me lately and not a whole lot from these good folks. So, let's just get right to it, shall we? I'm not going to waste any more of your time with my faff. Let's get to it. Sit back and enjoy the show. Mia Anstein is up first, followed by Sergeant Bill, and then Stephen Clifford to take it home to finish it off for this week. Sit back and enjoy the show, and I will talk to you again next week in episode 427.
Time now for Mia's Motivations with your host, Mia Anstein.
Hey guys, it's Mia Anstein here. I'm happy to be visiting with you again. And I know that there are many people who are super excited about the election results in the United States. And that is obvious because there is always the majority who is happy that their candidate won. And when we look at election results, it seems that most people look at the presidential election. And that's the big thing, is who's going to be president. But there are so many other things that we have to vote for in our states and counties and in our communities. And I think some people don't even realize those underlying issues that kind of uphold or support or determine the bigger picture. But this year, in Colorado, that's where I live, we had some big items on our ballot. And the biggest one, I would say, in the hunting community was a fight to save wildlife management, basically. We had on our ballot a proposition that aimed to eliminate mountain lion, bobcat, and lynx hunting. And a lot of people may think that hunting of these cats is not important, but it is. And that's something that I think everybody should know about. And I did kind of campaign for this to explain, as a hunter ed instructor and as a hunter, I understand why we hunt and manage these animals. And so that's what I campaigned for, is we manage these animals not only for food, because that is something that we have to do. When you take a mountain lion in Colorado, you take the meat as well. It's part of the law that you actually eat these animals. And this initiative was ran under a cats aren't trophies was the slogan that the proponents had put out. And they're right. They're not trophies. They are wildlife. They live in the same communities that we do, or rather we live in their habitat. We've overtaken their habitat. We have millions of people in our state that live in their habitat. So there is a lot of managing that has to be done. And there actually is a recent mountain lion study that was released by Colorado Parks and Wildlife, coincidentally, like a week and a half after the election, actually just shortly after the election. But anyways, part of that study shows that the mountain lions are thriving in Colorado, and even in a portion of the area that they studied, they are exceeding the intended goal because of the carrying capacity of that habitat. So if you don't know what that means, the habitat can sustain X amount of wildlife. And right now, the mountain lions in some areas are a little high, which means you would actually, as a wildlife management agency, you would issue more hunting licenses for that animal to help manage it so that they all are able to live a nice, healthy life and thrive as a wildlife species. So something else that you might not understand about wildlife management is that these predators, looking at the bobcats and smaller game like that, a lot of that is hunted via trapping. And we hunt these because they actually have impacts on our other small game species, such as maybe prairie chickens, turkeys, pheasants, quail. Like, these smaller animals impact those populations. And you can actually see that in the state of New Mexico. They eliminated trapping, and they're in New Mexico, not there, but in New Mexico, the populations of the prairie chickens are plummeting. So that is something that we can help manage one species by managing another species to help have a balanced wildlife population. But anyways, in Colorado, we as hunters and conservationists and people who love wildlife, even though some people claim to love wildlife, we love wildlife and want all species to thrive. And so we deem it a win that Proposition number 127 in Colorado was defeated. And something else that you would like to know is that the Coloradans learned something in 2020 when we had a proposition to introduce wolves into our state. And that initiative passed, and we are currently dealing with the ramifications and the excessive spending that has gone on to introduce the wolves, because the voters didn't realize what they were voting for. And we have had tons of depredations, livestock kills already. The cattlemen are trying to figure out how they can protect their livestock, because with a federally protected species, they're not able to, if a wolf is attacking their cow or sheep and they see that, they're not allowed to kill the wolf as a means to protect their livestock. They actually have to call in for help and watch the animal suffer while they're waiting for somebody to come and help them. So it's really a terrible, heartbreaking. I mean, for me, it hurts my heart to think about how this is happening, because voters thought they were voting for, let's put a beautiful wolf on the landscape. Yeah. And they are beautiful. They're on the landscape, but it's all the stuff around. And that's what we need to think about when we're voting. All the impacts, these ripples. So a water drops into the water bucket and it ripples out. And so when we vote, there's this ripple effect, and we have to take that into account. So in Colorado, we had a win with Proposition 127. An anti-hunting initiative was defeated. And we're very thankful and proud of that. And we want you to know that I'll try to keep you updated on this on my Mia Anstein site and let you know where this is going to go, because this actually was defeated at the state agency's commission meetings. It was defeated, and then it was taken to the House as a bill, and it was defeated, and then they took it to the ballot, and it was defeated. But right now, the sportsman community is a little concerned because we feel that the commission now is stacked with some anti-hunting game commissioners. And there's proof of that in that they were campaigning for an anti-hunting ballot initiative, which is actually against their rules in our state. And so they were campaigning in support of that ballot initiative, and they're on the game commission. So I'll try to keep you posted of that over on my Mac Outdoors outlet. But in addition, in our state, there was Proposition KK. This was a measure to implement a state tax on firearms and ammunition. And so that did pass, and it passed. The funds raised from that tax on gun owners is aimed to go support mental health, which I do believe a lot of mental health support is needed. That is why we have so many suicides and we have so many people shaving their heads and crying and acting out, is because we need some help in that mental health area. So while this initiative passed and it's going to cost gun owners, hopefully the intended outcome is going to be supportive for all communities, in addition to the gun owning community when it comes to mental health. So I don't want to just focus on Colorado. I also wanted to talk to you about some other states. A big one is Florida became the 24th state to adopt a constitutional right to hunt and fish amendment. And that adoption is a huge one, and it's one that we've talked about here in Colorado. It's going to take a big push to try to get something like that. However, there's something that we need to note also with a right to hunt and fish. It doesn't say a right to hunt and fish what in most of these amendments, but the hunting and fishing will always be there. And something that concerns me is that maybe we're only going to be hunting and fishing catch and release, only fishing for bass, not for trout, or only fishing for carp and not for pike, or something like that. So we have to kind of think of these things and educate our friends and family and others about what it means to hunt or fish. So if you're not a hunter or an angler and you have questions about it, message me. You can find me. My email address is contact@miaanstein.com, or you can message me on social media. I'm on most of the major social media outlets as Mia Anstein, and I check my messages regularly, so I'd be happy to answer any questions for you there. I wanted to also just tell you about some of the Successes and challenges, or challenges and wins for gun owners. So, in several of the Western states, the election outcome suggested that there might be some more restrictive gun policies coming ahead. And by that, I'm talking about in Washington state, they've reelected leaders in their state that are going to support their governors' ongoing efforts to reinforce red flag laws and bans on semi-automatic rifles. And that, as I said, can potentially broaden firearms restrictions in that state. Down in Oregon, the Democrats held on to power, and that aligns with initiatives that are going to expand the need for background checks and enforce their so-called safe storage regulations. Additionally, California's Democrat victories also are going to reinforce Governor Newsom's commitment to strict gun control. And with these policies already in place, and requiring microstamping on new handguns and banning high-capacity magazines. There's a lot of litigation going on, but those are some of the hurdles that are going to have to be overcome. And so those are some of the negatives, but there are some positives. And as I said, the Colorado Proposition KK was also added a hurdle. But some positives. There were positives. Despite those developments, there were several other states that had positive outcomes, such as Texas. Lloyd, hopefully you're going to stay in Texas a while. It seems like Texas ended up very red, and usually red means support of our gun rights. But Senator Ted Cruz was reelected, and he is pretty pro-gun, and he should be helping support gun rights. In Florida, the recent elections helped secure some more gun-friendly leadership as well, and that will hopefully ensure that the state still continues to back the permitless carry laws that they currently have and some of their individual self-defense rights. Also, notably in Missouri, the Republican victories are bringing momentum to initiatives aiming to streamline concealed carry rules and to resist some of the federal mandates on firearm regulations. These leaders in Texas, Florida, and Missouri, they signal support for Second Amendment rights, and their policies align with the gun owners' calls for simplified regulations and protections for lawful self-defense. And additionally, I'll just give a little summary from the National Shooting Sports Foundation. They ran the Gun Vote campaign, which they do every year. And the Gun Vote campaign is basically voting to help protect our Second Amendment rights. And so they highlighted how millions of gun owners and hunters and Second Amendment supporters made their voices heard in the election. And they helped secure the victory for President-elect Donald Trump and pro-gun members of Congress. We had millions of first-time gun owners and previously unregistered hunters mobilized. And this is something with Safari Club International. We ran a campaign to take a hunter to the polls, and we signed commitments to take new people to the polls. And the election results showed that we have a strong affirmation of commitment to protect the Second Amendment, and that we had some key Senate wins. Some of those are in Ohio, West Virginia, and Montana. And they reinforced their pro-gun stances in Congress, showing that gun owners have an influence on election outcomes. And so I hope in the future we can continue this momentum so that we can continue to be able to enjoy our passions, our freedoms, most importantly, to have firearms, to carry our firearms, to have them for self-defense, to have them for recreation, and hunting, which hunting I deem as recreation, although it is conservation as well. As I said, if you have questions, please reach out to me, let me know, or let Lloyd know, and he can message me as well. I'd be happy to answer them. And until next time, have a great one. I hope you all have a smile.
Mia Anstein is a hunting guide, firearms instructor, writer, and gun rights advocate. You can hear more from Mia on her YouTube channel or by visiting her website, miaanstein.com. Time now for The Ballistic Minute with your host, Sergeant Bill Sylvia.
Hey everybody, I'm Sergeant Bill, and this is your Ballistic Minute. Today, Lloyd asked me if I could talk about the latest election, what I think about it, and how it's going to affect my hobbies and my profession. So, Trump wins. Feels like it should be in big, bold letters on the front of the newspaper. Not everybody's very happy about that. I was. I like the fact that he gets some stuff done. You don't have to like him, but he's a good leader. Personally, I don't know if I like him, but he's a hell of a leader, hell of a businessman, and he gets things done. And he will make America great again, and I think that's fantastic. So we got the trifecta. We got the president, the vice president. We got the House and the Senate. It was kind of silly that I guess it was a House race that took like an extra week to count votes. Don't know why that's so hard to do. I think that we need to change the way voting is done in this country in every state at the federal level. And if we can serialize all our money, then we can serialize ballots. And you're issued a ballot for you, you're a legal voter, and you get it. That way, there's no election fraud, there's no BS. It can be pushed through a machine and counted, and they don't have to take a week to figure out the numbers. Anytime it takes that long to count votes, if you're like me, I call shenanigans. I think there's stuff going on, and they're trying to cook the numbers, and I don't believe it. But luckily, the numbers came out in our favor, even though it seems like the House is pretty close. But we'll see how that plays out. I think this election, people got out and made their voices and their concerns heard. People are a lot like me, that, we all think the same things. We're tired of the cost of things. Everything's going up. Everything's getting more expensive. The global instability, just, fighting and wars and the lack of respect for our country. We're supposed to be a global power, and how can you respect a leader of a global power when the guy can't even walk a flight of stairs going up to his private jet? The political shenanigans that went on in the last 4 years, I won't even get into that, but that stuff is ridiculous. And really, that boils down to career politicians. I think that's something that should not even exist. That should be done and gone. We need to get rid of that. We need to actually have a constitutional amendment, I think, and enough people get together and vote on it. Maybe we could do that. And stop having career politicians. Being a politician should not be a career. It should be something that you go to do and do your part for a few years, and then you move on. You get back into the real world. I don't think any politicians really live in the real world. They don't even follow the rules of the real world. They make laws that they exclude themselves from. It's ridiculous. It's what I call political shenanigans, and I don't want to have any part of it. But I think Trump and Vance and their cabinet will get a lot of things done. They'll start making our military stronger. They'll start making our government stronger and more efficient. They will reduce prices on things and get life back to good old normal, I guess. As far as hobbies, my hobbies that will be affected, I guess, shooting competitively. We're going to have more freedom. We'll have lower costs, so hopefully buying ammo to shoot or buying guns and stuff or components to reload will be a little bit cheaper. We won't be running out of stuff because everyone panic buys all kinds of components and ammunition, which is ridiculous, but it happened in the last few elections. Shockingly, it's not happening now, so that's a good thing. As far as my profession in law enforcement, well, I'll tell you what, 23 years in law enforcement, I have never been allowed to talk to or present one of my arrestees, a criminal arrestee, to an ICE agent. In the county that I work in, they don't allow it. Well, now that should happen. If you're illegal and you're a criminal, yeah, you are a criminal. If you're illegal, you should get deported. And it happens in every other country, but people act like it's a dirty thing to say in the United States. But we need people to follow the rules. We follow the rules. Why can't anybody else? We need border security. We need people that are coming into our country illegally need to be prosecuted for that. People that come into our country illegally and then commit crimes need to be doubly prosecuted for that. And hopefully that'll start happening in a lot of these liberal cities and liberal counties. And we'll get back to a stronger America. If you want to come into this country, come in legally. Nothing wrong with that. I'd help somebody do that if that's what they want to do. I think a lot of people feel that way. Well, I guess only time will tell as far as how this presidential election is going to turn out, and history will tell us all we need to know. But I have high hopes. I'm going to do my part. I went out and voted, and I think America has been great, is still great, and will be great again. And I will do everything I can to try and make it better. And I hope you will too. I'm Sergeant Bill. God bless America. And this has been your Ballistic Minute.
Sergeant Bill Sylvia is a master-class competitive shooter and a veteran of the Dallas Police Force. Be sure to check out more from Sergeant Bill on his YouTube channel at armedlutheran.us/Sergeant Bill. And now, please welcome back our guest contributor, Stephen Clifford.
I'm Steve Clifford, and I am honored to have been asked to participate in this week's variety show on the Armed Lutheran Radio podcast. The question of the week was what I hope the election means for me and the hobbies and interest in firearms. There are a number of things I'd like to see accomplished, but I'm not particularly hopeful about any of them. Yes, I think it would be fantastic to have nationwide reciprocity for concealed carry permits. And that's probably the only one that has any chance of moving forward. And that's something that a lot of people have been talking about. I would love to see the Hearing Protection Act passed. It's been proposed a number of times over the years, and that would remove sound suppressors from the National Firearms Act. Which would essentially let you buy a suppressor or silencer over the counter without having to get any special permissions or pay a stamp tax. And in a perfect world, I'd love to see the Hughes Amendment removed from the 1987 Firearm Owner Protection Act. That amendment banned the sale of new machine guns under the NFA. Now, yeah, it'd be cool to get the NFA repealed, but that's not realistic. But removing the Hughes Amendment would at least get prices for machine guns down into the realm of the reasonable, even though you'd still have to go through the whole thing of getting a permission and taxes for it. Those are hopes and aspirations, but unfortunately, I don't think much of it has a chance of passing because the filibuster still exists in the Senate. And that's a good thing. The Republicans are not going to eliminate the filibuster like the Democrats said they were going to do. The filibuster is an important thing, but it means that it takes only 40 senators to derail any legislation. So the chances of any of those passing are not real great. I really think the best we can expect at this point is that the newly announced Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk and Ramaswamy would be able to clean up some of the idiocy that makes life difficult for gun owners and perhaps purge some of the anti-gunners out of the ATF. My fear, though, is that we as gun owners are going to get very complacent in this moment of euphoria after such an incredible election victory. We're happy because we all knew that if Kamala Harris had won, we would be in for a world of hurt. There's absolutely no question that she was going after our freedoms if she'd won. It could have been very bad, and the sense of relief is real. However, I have this sinking feeling that things are not going to go as smoothly as we would like to over the next few weeks and months. Listen to the words and the tone from the legacy media right now and from some of the leftist politicians. That should give us real pause. They are still saying some things that to us sound outlandish, but they're saying these things and not being mocked. they're being taken seriously. They keep repeating them. Why would they do this? Well, it's programming. They're programming people's minds to accept their version of reality. They're still saying that Trump is literally Hitler. They are using the word Nazi and fascist in describing Donald Trump and, frankly, all of us. They're claiming that boxcars will be hauling off the enemies of Donald Trump and sending them to concentration camp. They're not even saying it's going to just be illegal aliens. They say it'll be legal aliens. They say it'll be enemies of Donald Trump are going to be hauled off to concentration camps. They're serious. They're saying that women are going to die in the millions because of lack of health care options for pregnancy. They're claiming that Trump has been granted blanket immunity for any act of despotism. This isn't hyperbole at this point. They actually believe this stuff, and they keep repeating it over and over. The rule of propaganda is if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes reality in the minds of those who hear it. That's what brainwashing looks like. So who's the target for this brainwashing? It isn't you and me. They don't care about us. It's the 200,000 federal employees that could make it impossible to carry out the policies that Donald Trump was elected to carry out. It's the BLM radicals who proved in 2020 that they could bring the nation to a standstill with riots and civil disorder. It's the college students who have learned to admire Middle Eastern terrorist organizations over the last 13 months. In essence, it's the people who could make the maximum amount of disruption for normal Americans. They really believe that Trump is a genuine Nazi, and that on January 20th, 2025, the United States of America will cease to exist if they don't act. I think they're going to act. I don't think they can do anything except act on their beliefs. Like I said, it's not hyperbole to them. This is a threat to their very existence, and they feel and are going to act like a cornered animal. So what should we do? Well, this is the calm before the storm. Right now is the time for gun owners, Christians, and patriotic Americans to get ready. It's time to stock up on ammo, emergency food, water, and power. Take one last training course if you can. Get your plans ready because you have a duty to defend your family, your community, your state, and your nation. All right, I know this got dark. This isn't what Lloyd asked for, but I think as a community of armed Lutherans, we have to be aware of the forces that could be unleashed shortly. On the bright side, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I was on record saying that I didn't even think we were going to have an election because I thought there was no way they could let Trump win. I thought some calamity was going to stop the election, and that didn't happen. Perhaps I'm wrong about this as well. But listening to the hysteria in the legacy media tells me they still have a plan. So get prepared. Get prepared with ammo, food, water, and plans. But also get prepared by strengthening your faith. Follow the Spirit's guidance on keeping your family safe. Trust that God will see you through this when you do your part. I hope this wasn't too dark. If you're looking for ways to get prepared with a bolt-action rifle, I might be able to help you with that. I have a YouTube channel. Just look for me. Put in Cliffy109. You'll find lots of content on general-purpose bolt-action rifles, and that might help you in your plans. God bless us all.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at armedlutheran.us. Check out our Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear or have a question or comment, please visit our feedback page, armedlutheran.us/feedback. Christ's blessings to you, and thank you for listening. Armed Lutheran Radio is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.